Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, we promised it. It's happening. We are doing What If Season 1
That's right.
in a different way. Because what if, yes, they all come together at the end, but we decided let's just take each episode on its own merit. So we're gonna just talk through them, what we liked, maybe stuff we didn't like about each episode, and then at the end, instead of giving the season a rating out of 10, we are just going to rank the episode's least favorite to favorite.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, having said that, episode 1, Captain Carter. Is that what it's called? What if there was a Captain Carter?
Oh, I think it's what if Agent Carter took the serum instead of Steve.
Excellent. Yeah, well, it's episode 1. Peggy gets the serum.
Yes.
It's they've got some good animation going. I know it's the same throughout, but is there something like more Disney like about this one? I feel like there's that scene where she takes out the German soldier who was like, oh my god, it's a girl or whatever, and she hits him. He makes like a look almost like Gaston like ooh face when he gets hit, and I was just like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. And it's more Haley Atwell getting to be Peggy Carter, which is always great.
That's always fantastic.
She didn't really get a lot to do in the movies.
Yeah.
She showed up, but she didn't get to, have fun like this. Or, I know she had her own TV show, so
but it's up there. I think she must be at least snubbed or feeling a certain way about it not being recognized within the MCU canon, I guess. But
no, I don't know.
This is
not recognized, but yeah.
But
I see what you mean. Like she's not like she's like an early movie, and then she never gets to be in her prime after that.
Exactly. And then she gets this TV show, which is supposed to be a big thing. And then later on, Kevin Feige being like, hey, I forgot what the other guy that was doing TV for a while that wasn't doing a good job. Loeb, yeah. So it's like, because they hate each other, Haley Atwell gets snubbed in the process with Agent Carter, the 2 seasons of Agent Carter not being recognized.
Well, they are recognized because...
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Her appearance in Endgame is playing off of her TV show, and the guy who plays Jarvis is the guy who plays Jarvis in the TV show. So that, of all the shows, is actually,
that
if
one is
not explicitly considered canon, at least actually acknowledged by the movies.
Okay, so it's kind of like the Star Wars universe being like, oh yeah, here's a Easter egg of Darth Revan or whatever.
I think it's more than that, because it's like, this is Jarvis. It's the same actor. This is Peggy in the same setting as her TV show. So like, it seems like it's just
full on retconning or re-acknowledging.
It's just acknowledging that she had a TV show. Yeah,
got it. I mean, that's great because there was no reason to really not include the Agent Carter stuff of everything. I mean, I get the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff to not include. Sure, I get it. That's a lot messier. But the Agent Carter stuff, because it was so in its own pocket universe, I guess, that you're like, why it seems petty that Kevin Feige was like, hey, yeah, this is not real. Or in our MCU.
Well, he didn't. But I know what you mean.
It would have been petty if it was like that.
But, I guess so. Yeah, but I think it is a pleasant enough thing. But I think you'll see a pattern for when I speak praise about an episode. It didn't really like. I feel like it was like, what if Peggy was Captain Carter or but like, it was still the same beats as the first Avenger.
Yes.
So it didn't give like as a first episode, it was cool because it was like, oh, okay, yeah, like it's just, hey, here's the time that things changed, and then we'll see it play out. But I think once I saw even the second episode, I was like, oh, like it's not the best use of this conceit. This is, it's nice to see, but it wasn't like, oh wow, like they really like expanded things here. It was just like, yeah, it's her instead of Steve and things, and Bucky doesn't die. Steve kind of takes the Bucky place, even though he doesn't full on die. Like it was just like, yeah, okay, that's nice. That's pretty much all I have to say about the first one. It was just like, yeah, nice.
I kind of agree with you. That was a great first episode. I really, really enjoyed it. But a part of me was just like, so we're just retelling the MCU movies with different, like, basically, what if we recasted the MCU movies?
And I think some people thought that's what this show was going to be. So I guess it makes sense that was the first episode, because then people at least feel like, oh, okay, good, it's what I wanted. But I'm happy where it went.
In that regard, when I was like, oh, okay, this feels like what if they recasted the Marvel movies, with, like, you know, the different characters in place in that regard. I was still trying to hold on to the idea of like, okay, is this the Peggy Carter that we know? Is this the Steve Rogers that we know? Is this the Howard Stark that we know? And how they would act and all that kind of stuff, and whether or not certain things made sense. So like the Howard Stark, like Iron Man suit being brought into this episode, to me was like, did they have the technology there? I was sure in the conference they were like kind of making a gag that the Howard Stark like floating car didn't work and all that kind of stuff, right? So for them to jump from that to the Iron Man suit being suddenly available, to me was a big
but he didn't have the Tesseract to power it.
Right, he used the Tesseract to do it. I forgot about that part entirely.
I'm it's part of what frustrated me about watching this show, was watching certain YouTube people try to like pin it to, well, how could that happen? Because in the movies, that, and it's like, it's not the movies. It's sure people will acknowledge what happened in these episodes, but like it isn't. These aren't the characters from the movies. It's any type of like similarity to what happened in the movies is just to give you comfort and being like, I kind of get where we're going with this, but these aren't the characters that we saw in the movies. These are just different realities. So I wasn't so hung up on like, how come Xandar isn't more broken up, and how come this? It's like, because it's not the same thing. It's just simply not. So I mean, they don't need to do anything the same.
It's that butterfly effect thing where like if one thing changes, then everything else in that universe
and we don't know what
changed
changed first. Like, so in the first episode they show us the first change, but like no other episode makes a point of being like, this is the exact point that changed everything. It's just showing you different things. So I wasn't like, I didn't have to like pull out my hair being like, no, because if he has this stone and then if this out, it's like, we're just seeing a new story, and it's we're seeing a continuation of a story. We're seeing a continuation of a story, and I think that's where it's confusing, where it's like, oh yeah, every story beat is the exact same up until the serum part, because it is retelling the first Avenger movie. For this episode it seems like that's the case.
And then for those YouTubers or like content creators and everything like that, not harking on them, but like I think that's where the disconnect was. It's like, oh, it's up until this point, and then this is the point that changes the trajectory of everything else. And like, if they don't understand that, then I mean, they're it's kind of like,
I mean, they can be angry about it, but it's also like, I heard another content creator say something that really stuck with me, which was, well, do you want answers or do you want to be angry? So like, are you actually like, you could just be angry about it, sure, that's one way to do it, and then be like, no, because this and pin everything on that. Or you could just be like, oh, actually, I don't think this is the case. I think we are watching something new. And enjoy that.
Do we want to be emotional, or do we want to be rational?
It's not about emotional. It's more like, it is actually speaking to the specific thing of being angry, which I think sometimes people just want to be angry, and that's fine, but
that's true.
Don't try and spin it like, oh, this is just my objective. It's like, you're angry about something, so vent. Great. But like, I think if you're actually approaching these episodes, at no point do I feel like it has to be that things were going exactly the way we saw them in the movies until this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was like a key factor to
No.
enjoying this.
No.
I was kind of bummed when they're like, oh, this is canon, because I was like, oh, well, now we are going to have people being like, no, can't happen that way, can't happen. It's like we've now boxed this in instead of just letting it be what it should be, which
I
is,
agree. That
hey,
part was
let's
disappointing.
let's just enjoy this story being told.
Yeah. I 100% thought this was not going to be canon, and it was a little bit of a refresher to be like, you know, from when it was first like announced to us. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be so much fun to review with you, in the sense where we don't have to try to fit the puzzle pieces together. We can just talk about it. And then they made it canon, and I was a little bit disappointed by that, actually.
Yeah, I understand what they mean now by canon, but it just, I think, ruins the discourse of this season when people are like, no, it's canon, so that means this, and this. And it's like, I think it's canon in so much as now we can have a Captain Carter in the live action, and no one can be like, where did that come from? But I don't think,
and that's a good thing.
I don't
think
it's
a good
like,
thing, though. I like that.
Oh no, I agree. But it's just more like now you could have like, they could do something like that, as opposed to being like, oh, this was just a cartoon and that's right. I still think it should have just been that, but like, I'm happy that there are some characters here that we would enjoy seeing later.
I agree, but then there's other characters that if they were to show up, you'd be like, well, this is heavily confusing now. What the hell's going on? Like, I'm just thinking about, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but not reviewing the episode, but what, like, you know, the episode that Doctor Strange loses what's her face, Rachel McAdams' character, Christine Palmer. That episode where it's like, okay, well, aside from like, Doctor Strange looks the exact same there as the other Doctor Strange, except for the old, like, okay, yeah, you look tired.
I think let's
and all
wait
that kind
and
of stuff, right?
Let's just get to the episode, because I think you'll be able to fully expand when we get there.
But my issue is like a lot of where the characters end up, there's not enough of visual separation of like, oh, your head is bald now because you went through this, and that's a visual indication that you're not this universe's this character and everything like that. That it is, that could be confusing, but in the Captain Carter situation, it actually has me quite excited to be like, oh, is there going to be potentially a Captain Carter spin-off show that may be animated, may not be, but either way, it's kind of fun to think about. But I mean, later on where the character ends up, it's a little bit less fun, but we'll get to there later. That is episode 1.
Episode 1, fun time. Episode 2 is Star-Lord T'Challa, and the thing I really like about this episode is it continues what I think works about specifically T'Challa as a character in his first movie, which is the decisions he makes have more impact on people than just, oh, he just saved that. Like, because he became Star-Lord and actually left Wakanda and went around, like, he saved Drax's family. He turned Thanos around. The Ravagers are like good guys that like go around, rob from the rich, give to the poor. Like, there was just so many different, like, Thanos and Nebula actually got to have an actual relationship because
they have a good relationship. Yeah.
So like, it's like all these things that like actually took the essence of T'Challa, or what I think works about the character in terms of when he does make a decision, it has an actual impact lasting beyond just, oh, okay, yeah, great. That thing. It was like, there's these widespread impacts that happen, and they chose this time that it was good. And even when we get to the last episode, there's even more good that comes of him being Star-Lord. But it's like, I really liked this episode because also, it starts off kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, where he gets picked up by the Ravagers, but it's just like a completely different story in this.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. This episode to me it fundamentally proved to me that some episodes are not following the framework for what the Marvel movie equivalent is, and this one really was a departure, and it was a departure in the best way, because I like the idea that they did take Star-Lord out of his environment, and basically what his life trajectory was to be a good influence against oppression, right? In
Mhm.
either way. And then when you bring him out of Earth and scale him into the universe, he scales that impact of good into an even better thing. Like, to convince, like, one of my favorite things about this episode is every time you see Thanos, he's just like pitching his thing. He's like, see, it's brilliant because it's this. And then everyone's calling him up and being like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just genocide, all that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff. And then there's that one scene where like he and like Star-Lord and Thanos are together, like drinking or something like that, being like, yeah. And then like like T'Challa says something amazing, like, there are always better ways of doing something or something like that. And I'm
Which
just
is
like,
the point of the first movie
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is beautiful. This is like taking the essence of the movie and the essence of the character and really putting him in a different situation. This was by far one of my favorite episodes, I think. But like,
Yeah.
it's so cool in regards to how this worked so well. And then to me, the episode was like, okay, this is really fun. This is all good, but there's no real threat to the episode until you get to like the Collector. And you're like,
Yeah.
this is brilliant in the sense where they really shined in on the idea of like him collecting, building up that greed as an extension of evil, and like how greed is like a path to evil if it goes unchecked and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right? So
well,
that was
without
really
Thanos,
cool.
Thanos stomping him out, he became quite a threat. Like, he was
Yeah.
even able to take out like Hela, and
Yeah.
obviously we saw that he had like Captain America's shield.
Mhm.
He had like a dark elf thing, and it looked like he had Korg's arm. Like,
Yeah, I
he
can't
did some
remember
damage.
that. He did some damage, and the bro lifts. Like,
Yeah.
wow, they gave him a lot of muscle. Like, if they ever live action that, I want to see Benicio del Toro's transformation in the gym.
I was weirded out when I was like, oh, that is Benicio del Toro. Like, I thought for sure they just got someone else to do his voice, and then at the end it was like, oh, that actually was him. Did he not
Mhm.
remember what he did in the first movie? Like,
Yeah.
like, it just didn't seem like that. Like, he was just doing a different character.
Yeah,
But,
I
like,
will. The voice work is inconsistent with a lot of the character stuff that we know, which is very interesting.
Oh, I disagree with that, but like,
Really?
I think anytime someone came back to do that, except for Sebastian Stan in the first
Mm.
episode, I was like, what the hell? Like, who's helping him with these line reads? Like, he seems so off with his line reads in the first episode, just the first one.
Yeah.
And then this second one again,
Mhm.
like, even Korath, like Jaimon Hansu's character, I was like, oh, this guy's like the MVP of this episode. Like, he's so excited, and that first sequence, so good. Like, I was just like, oh, this is amazing.
Oh my god, the whole thing was like, oh my god, you're Star-Lord. Like,
He's like,
and
okay, so we're gonna fight then. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I think that's what we came here to do, right? Like,
that was so much fun. You're right. Digimon Hansu was such a great episode. Like, part of that episode, it was so small. It was perfect. It was everything. I love it.
he's like, should we be bowing? I feel like we
Yeah.
should be bowing.
Doesn't he say to his goons too? He's like, "Do you know who this is? This is
Yeah.
Star-Lord." That was so good.
Yeah, and that he was like, please, like, recruit me or whatever. And then he does join. I thought he's so fun in that. And I know it's not the same character, but it is playing off the whole
Mhm.
when you saw him in Captain Marvel, and he's like, I do laugh. It's just you guys aren't funny.
Yeah.
So then you see him in this, and he's like, and like, he is having a good time finally.
It's good. I like this episode too, because I like that subtle idea that, like, hey, if you're a force of good in the universe, people will recognize you. And like that was the part of that like the naivety in me really, really like that part of like, oh, he's more famous than Peter Quill Star-Lord, because Peter Quill Star-Lord was selfish and therefore didn't deserve that like universal revere, versus like T'Challa's literally breaking people out of poverty, out of oppression, saving people from genocide and all that kind of stuff. He deserves to be famous at that level. So it's really cool
I
to
don't
see
know
that.
if he's famous. I think he's respected by the people whose lives he's touched. And I
Sure,
think,
but and it's very clear that he's touched a lot of lives. In this case, Digimon Hansu's life. I can't remember his name, but like,
I think that's Korath.
Korath. So like the idea of like he even touching the quote unquote bad guys' lives and having a good impact on the bad guys, quote unquote. That part was really, really cool. It blurs that line of good and evil a lot more, being like, okay, are you evil or do you come from an oppressed environment and are you manipulated and all that kind of stuff? Like what we know about that character in Captain Marvel is like, yeah, you're part of this race that's like receiving all this propaganda against the Kree and all this kind of stuff. Are you directly
Skrull.
responsible, or Skrull? Yeah, sorry. Are you directly responsible, or are you the product of your environment? Right. Those are very interesting things. And in that situation, that one subtle thing was like, this is so cool to see. I love it.
Yeah, I really like that episode.
Not to mention that was also like. Now here's the thing, I did not realize that T'Challa Star-Lord character would pop up throughout the series. So when that episode aired, and I thought that was literally Chadwick Boseman's last like appearance or last time we'd hear his voice or whatever as Star-Lord, I legit cried. And then I saw him over and over again, and I was like, wait, it doesn't take away from the episode. I still cried, but I'm like, it's kind of it took away from it knowing that he came up through the rest of the episode so much, because I legit thought these episodes are all on their own. I had that idea, and then I was
the trailers show
that
he's in more than one episode.
I did not pay attention to the trailers too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how it takes away from it. All they ever said was this is his last performance this show, not that episode. And he's only Star-Lord T'Challa one more time, even though he shows up a bunch of times, but he's only ever Star-Lord one more time.
Yeah, significantly one more time. But yeah, it was a good episode.
Well, no, he's only ever T'Challa if you see him again, other than the last episode. He's not Star-Lord T'Challa.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. And that is a decidedly different character than T'Challa. But yeah, it was upsetting because I heard that they wanted him to be more like Star-Lord T'Challa in what is now going to be called Wakanda Forever. They wanted him, and obviously he wouldn't be the character, but they were like, hey, like let's explore this side of his personality, like the fun side, not so stoic. So they wanted to do that in the second movie, and then now the director is saying they wanted to just do a straight up spin-off of Star-Lord T'Challa in animation. So it seems like, and I know they were saying that, like, yeah, Chadwick was very excited about this take on T'Challa. So that is upsetting. I don't think him showing up more takes away from it, but obviously how you feel is how you feel. But I was just happy that it was a meaningful amount of time on screen for this.
Absolutely.
It didn't feel just like, yeah, they just brought him in for a couple of line reads and that's that.
Yeah, this was hugely impactful, and I really love this episode for sure. That's good.
And so that is episode 2.
Episode 3.
What if Hank Pym kills the Avengers? I know it's called
What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes. This is cool to me because I
love this episode. I thought like at first I was just like, I genuinely don't know how they're getting killed off. I was so like what is happening? I thought for sure like, oh, it's gonna be Ghost. They're gonna bring back Ghost from Ant-Man 2, like, or like it's Loki for sure. It's Loki because he can sometimes trick people or whatever. But like, I think I figured out like seconds before Hank Pym walked out. I was like, oh, it's Ant-Man. I see. But didn't make me go like, oh, that sucks. I was just like, yeah, like he is kind of like angry at the Avengers even in our MCU. He's not happy about them. So like, and I like that they made him use the yellow jacket suit and stuff. Like I was like, yeah, like I really like this episode. I thought it was such a cool idea, like a murder mystery that didn't feel cheesy.
And I like the idea that like I'm still reeling from this episode and seeing Bruce Banner die. I was like,
that was wild. Yeah, like they killed the Hulk.
Ridiculously crazy to me. I'm like, they could do that. I had no idea. I was
legit. It made it worse when is it Betty or Betsy? I never remember what the Liv Tyler name is.
I can't remember.
I think it's Betty. He's not supposed to die. He's not, like, what is this? He's not supposed to die. It's like, yikes. Like,
and the funny thing is, like, at that point in the movie is like, you don't even know it that well yet. That's the second movie. No, wait.
As I said, I don't take it as, oh, this was the movie until this thing. So
true.
like there's all these differences throughout these things, so none of it made me be like, oh, this is the movie until this moment.
Uh-huh.
I think she has just a different relationship with
Right.
Hulk in this. But yeah, I think Lake Bell's Natasha grew on me. I didn't love it in this episode, but I rewatched and I was like, I think I'm on her like wavelength of what she's doing. I think she gets better in the other episodes. I don't know what order she recorded it in, but I was just like, oh man, like you can tell this isn't Scarlett Johansson, but like it grew on me. I think basically, and I like her throughout all the episodes you see her in. I mean, I like the MCU version of Black Widow. Basically, I think I've said that many times. Once they figured out how to use her effectively,
and not as a prop.
So basically, just not Iron Man 2.
Any time she wasn't in Iron Man 2 for sure. I liked it a lot more. This episode was a lot of fun. This episode, it's really, to me, it was really, really getting into the heart and soul of like, okay, we laugh at Ant-Man a lot. We laugh at all the small jokes. We do that, but like, look how deadly he can be. Like, it's crazy in this situation.
He really kicked Natasha's ass.
When that scene was ridiculous, like, holy crap.
I think that was a scene where it's like, oh, it's got to be Ghost. Like the way that it seemed like I know now. I know it's just shrinking and getting big, but I was just like, oh, it's Ghost. It's Ghost. Like, this is so cool. They're gonna bring back Ghost, and then I wasn't disappointed. I was just like, oh, okay. And this is tying in stuff that we already know about Hank, which is he really did not want Hope to die. So if she did become a SHIELD agent and get killed, he would really put all of his efforts into taking
revenge.
Nick Fury.
Yeah.
So like I thought it was, again, great use of like what we know about these characters and then putting them in a just different story. And it starts off in Iron Man 2, but it's like, it's just a different story. Like there's beats that are similar, but it's just like, again, great use of the idea of like, what if this happened? And then at the end, Loki's like, well, I'm staying. So you made a deal with the devil and you're going to get screwed. Sorry. I liked Loki in that as well.
Loki within this whole series
he's great every time.
A lot of fun, for sure. To not have the pressure of trying to figure out whether or not he's evil or just like misunderstood or whatever it is. It was just really refreshing to see his character pop up multiple times in this. I don't know, was he voiced by Tom Hiddleston? It sounded like it was. Okay,
It was. The third one, great episode. So fourth one is,
what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands?
I did not like this episode.
I hated this episode. I hated the fridge to character. I hated it.
I didn't rewatch it, so maybe that's on me. It's the only one that I watched once and was like, nah. I think it is a new story, but it's really just his Dormammu moment over and over again. And
I agree.
Killing the female character.
Over
and over again. And it's like, nah, I don't need this.
It was tough to watch.
I like Doctor Strange's first movie, but once I saw him in Infinity War, I'm like, like him bouncing off of these other characters is what's good. I'm not like, it seems like such a weird choice to be like, let's do a what if where it's just him. I'm like, oh
what? I agree. Like, I like him interacting with other people. Him on his own is just like, I get it. You're good at what you do. You're arrogant. You're all like, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot to be with his character a long time, And
I know people really like this episode because it gets into like the real magic stuff, and I'm like, I think maybe I just don't care about that. I don't think it's a bad episode. I just think one, you've lost me with the whole we're just going to keep killing Christine thing, because that's not, I mean, it is the ultimate like, let's just switch it up, because they're trying to be like, this is an absolute point, she has to die. I'm like, but that wasn't in the movie. And also, why her? Like, I don't know. I think like it's a character of color, but like even if they did it like, oh, what if it's Baron Mordo is the one who has to die, so he never has that person checking him on, hey, use the magic responsibly. Still, it's just like
repeating the same thing over and over.
I get the sense they always just wanted to do that, like they wanted to get their Groundhog Day thing off, so it's not like they're not going to do it. It was just like, I don't need to see because they kill her off in so many. It's like one where he just doesn't go see her and she gets like killed by a mugger, and one time where her like building burns down. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like why?
It was
Why are we doing
like,
this?
yeah. I like there was a point in time where I'm like, the visuals of it of violence against women was just
Mhm.
too much in that episode. And I'm like, even like the fact that it was animated too, I'm like, it feels like you're taking violence against women less seriously because it's animated and you're doing this more. It's like if it was on screen, we'd feel so much more uncomfortable with it, right? And it's
Mhm.
just like,
I agree.
this is really upsetting to see, especially all the ways that she dies. You're right. Like, even if he's not involved, it's like, yep, gotta kill her, gotta kill her. Like, she's her death. I get it. Her death isn't in that situation, in that universe. This is an absolute point, and it needs to happen.
And I'm like,
but
why?
I don't
Like,
need
who
to
made
watch it
that
that many
choice?
times. Yeah, I don't
Like,
need to watch it that many times, though. That's the reality.
I only say that because now they're like, I think both of us understood when we saw the first movie, like, oh, he really likes her, but she becomes kind of just like someone who's just around. Like, I feel like the
Yeah.
movie is like, oh, that they had a relationship,
Mhm.
and like it doesn't really factor into his motivations
Mhm.
beyond like she is proof that he has the capacity to care about someone else. But even in that, it's more highlighting like even when he cares about someone else, they're not having a good time because he's still pretty selfish about
He's still narcissistic about everything. So
Yeah.
it's just like, it's hard to watch that character. And I get why certain people like that character, because it's like, I get the arrogance aspect of like, okay, I'm good at my job and I'm going to flex. And
Mhm.
I get the fantasy behind that. But then literally every other aspect of his personality, I'm find it unbearable to be with. And I'm like, I can't deal with it. Like the elitism in the first one, and then the like everything that the desperation, the narcissism, the selfishness, everything about it is like, I don't want to be with this character. I don't identify with his descent. I don't identify with all that kind of stuff because it's just a woe is me kind of situation. It is the ultimate representation of like, oh, if you're at the top of your game, the only thing you're afraid of is losing it. It is a good representation of that. But I mean, like, we've had that shown to us so many times, and at that point in time, it's like, oh, okay, we have to do it with a white man. Is just it's less of a connection with me. So to see this episode was not as
just
good for
it was
me.
and
Didn't resonate.
I understand thematically why it's just him, because we see at the end he's going to be in a prison by himself of his own making. But I was just like, seems like this episode could have done with spicing up with like having him interact with characters he didn't get to interact with before.
Yeah. The only thing I liked about this episode was like his narcissism, his desire to control everything, his whatever just leads him to a darker hole. Like, I'm like, okay, good. That is a real thing that would happen in real life. Show that as a consequence. I like that. That was the only thing I liked about the episode. Everything else was like, oh, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, the monsters are visually cool. The evil book stuff, magic stuff. I'm like, okay, we're gonna get more of that. But yeah, to me, this episode didn't work for me as much as the other ones did.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Was not a fan of this one.
Yep.
Next one is zombies.
Yeah, what if
a lot of fun.
This was a hyped episode for me. I loved it.
Yeah, again, just a completely different story. It does start off in Infinity War, but like you basically just get this zombie story after that. And I know that they did bring in some elements of the comic run, but like not some key ones, which I found interesting, but still was like, I'm glad they did their own thing. Like it's
what do you mean? Which
so
story
in the
elements?
comics, like the zombies can talk. Like it's not like they're actual. Like the zombies talk, and the more they eat, the more they remember who they were. So like it's this painful thing of like you're getting back to be human, but then you're like, holy shit, what have I done? Like, what am I doing with myself? And then it kind of resets. So like, and in the comics, Peter eats Aunt May and Mary Jane, only to be like,
Mhm.
holy fuck, look what I've done. So like there is and I get that they didn't want to
That's
focus
cool.
on that, but it was
Right.
and again, I liked this episode.
Mhm.
But it was just, yeah, there were some key things they didn't introduce into
Gotcha.
this, which is fine. It was just like, okay, cool. Like they just made a choice. Like, yeah, they're just, because I think actually probably no one who likes that comic run would be like, how come they still have their powers? But that is the point. It's like they're zombies and they still have their powers. Like they can talk, they know what's going on. It's
Mhm.
just they get their memories back the more they eat.
Right, because I don't know if we can conclude this, but basically Wanda's zombie was the one that probably ate the most because it was being fed, right? So, like, I don't know if Wanda's zombie was remembering more because there was inconsistencies there.
I don't think they use that. Is what I'm
Fair.
saying. I don't think
Right.
that was a factor. in
Like
this.
that's me trying to read into what you're saying and trying to project onto the,
Yeah.
the show.
I think
but
they were just like,
I think
oh,
you're
that's-
right. They didn't put that beat in as important.
I think they were just playing on Vision would take care of Wanda.
Right.
And in the comics, yeah, they do. They use Black Panther to like they take him apart piece by piece to keep feeding.
Right.
So that was from the comics, but
Mhm. The thing I liked about that though was the fact that, okay, as logical as Vision is, as rational as he is, as all those things, I love the fact that his AI was still infallible to love. Like that is crazy. Like
well,
he
was fallible. Yeah.
it was fallible. Yeah. So the idea of like he's like, this is the lesser of two evils. I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like the Star-Lord like Thanos situation. It's like, was that really the best solution, or was that the first solution you thought of that justified keeping Wanda alive in your heart or whatever it might be too? You know, like it feels like this decision that, you know, this version of Vision made was like, okay, yes, I get what you're saying, but also this is irrational at the same time.
That's I've always said that, like,
Mhm.
it's a beat I like in Civil War as well, that like
Mhm.
he stops being Vision, the like AI that came to life, and he becomes someone who has who makes rash decisions when
Yes. He's human.
someone he loves is in trouble or gets hurt.
Yeah.
They've thread that through, and yeah, his decision here is, I'm going to keep her alive and feed her.
Mhm.
I'm going to feed her what she needs. But yeah, I liked the mix of people they had. So it was like Spider-Man was hanging out with like Happy.
Yeah.
the
That
Dave
was a
Dust-
lot of fun.
What's his? I don't remember his name, but the Dust Malchin guy, the guy who loves Baba Yaga in the Ant-Man
Oh,
crew.
Polka Dot Man. I'm joking. I'm just joking.
David Dust Malchin. It is Polka Dot Man.
Yes.
I just don't remember his. Yeah, it doesn't matter what his name is.
Mhm.
He's there, and I don't remember the rest of the crew. Was Sharon Carter part of the crew, or she just shows up later?
I believe so. Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, I like that idea. I like Ant-Man with just his head hanging out with Vision and being like, I should have known he was evil. No. Like,
That was crazy to me. Seeing the Ant-Man head, I was just like, and then, but the funny thing was about that episode, I'm like, yeah, Paul Rudd would be joking around like that if that was the situation to deal with it. And like, I could see his version of Scott Pym doing that. You know what I mean?
Scott Lang.
Scott Lang, sorry. God damn it. I always do this. I'm bad with names. Yeah, love seeing Okoye in this. Love seeing just the Cloak of Levitation just doing whatever. Like that was really, really cool. This
Cloak
is just
always
a cool
good
episode. Yeah.
because it's got its own agenda.
Yeah.
So I like that.
It's like the magic carpet in Aladdin. It's great.
Exactly. But yeah, I really yeah, there was just so many like cool things that happen in it, and Hope gets to be a bigger part of it as well. Like she's kind of leading the charge. She sacrifices herself.
Mhm.
And that the only thing I thought was weird was the way it ends with like zombie Thanos. I really thought they were gonna pay that off later.
I agree with you. That
Like,
was,
I get it, he's in Wakanda, so maybe Doctor Strange didn't think to bring him over, but I was just like, we'll get to it. I was just
But
like, oh, like that seems like something you pay off.
that was really the moment that happened in this episode, I was just thinking like, okay, I'm getting annoyed now because I'm like, is this interrelated? Because every episode up until then was very, very much contained in its own universe, right? And then this was the only one that was like, wait, so you're telling me these episodes are starting to link up now?
Why did you think these link up?
Or like, what's that?
Why did you think that? This was still contained in its own universe.
It was contained in its own universe, but now I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna be able to continue the zombie storyline in through multiple episodes. There, we're gonna be able to continue this one. Like this is the first episode that made me think that this is actually setting up other stuff to continue on, fun stories and all that kind of stuff. But
I see, because I would say other than the Star Lord T'Challa one, all of them are setting something up to be paid off.
Yes, but in this one, this was the biggest one to me. It was like I was trying to see like, okay, yeah, it's kind of its own thing, but this one was like, okay, I can't ignore zombie Thanos. Like that was crazy to me. Loved it. It was so cool.
Yeah. So that was zombies. I don't really have much else
else to talk about.
I thought that was a fun one.
It's a really fun one for sure.
Is the next one Killmonger?
What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark?
I really like this one as well. Again, using a lot of what we know about Killmonger and Tony.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about this episode was Shuri's voice. I was like, this is off. I do not like this voice.
I can't fully
because they were playing her as younger because this was set in 2008. But she didn't sound younger. She sounded like an old woman trying to pretend to be young. No. I wish they could have got Letitia Wright back. Just
so you mean voiced by Zooey Deschanel?
I don't get that reference.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't get
that man, it's just the fact that she's always acting like a kid.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why. She's if you want to see what a 40-year-old toddler looks like, Zooey Deschanel. That's not fair. I was just watched that Family Guy episode last night where they made that joke. And that's my head.
Get back to a Family Guy then. I'm missing out on pop culture references.
Debatable. You're heavily in a pop culture like reference right now, so I heavily debate that.
Yeah, but everything else really worked for me, like showing like what happens when again Tony doesn't have that check of like that humility check, and he's just like, I can just continue doing what I'm doing. That worked out for me because Killmonger saved me. And like I like that each person has a moment to be hurt that they didn't get the position they would have got had things played out the way they did in the MCU. Like Happy being like, how come I'm not head of security? Or like Pepper being like, sorry, he gets to be COO. Like that's fucked. Like this is, I don't like this. I liked it.
Recognize that.
I liked that they had those moments in there. It was really detailed, and it was a detailed plan by Killmonger. Like, and I like that even at the end of the episode, it's only Pepper and Shuri really that are like, oh, this guy is a fake. Like, we need to get rid of him because he just did such a good job of tying up loose ends for the most part and really ingratiating himself with T'Chaka and Ramona. I can't remember now. I don't remember her name. T'Challa's mom, and basically the head of what looked like the army in Wakanda.
Oh, Angela Bassett.
Yeah, but
character. I'm gonna do this all the time, audience. I'm sorry. It's just I'm not good at remembering actors and then their roles. I could do one or the other. It's just it's hard for me. Anyways, but yeah, this episode was great.
It is Ramonda.
Yeah, I love this episode because I'm like, this really shows the mental chess capabilities, what Killmonger does and what Killmonger is. The idea that he was able to like really, and to his credit, it wasn't too hard to trick Tony Stark in this situation. He was still very much.
I just mean that he had to trick a bunch of people. Like it wasn't just Tony. He had to trick, but the biggest, Queen Ramonda and T'Chaka as well.
Right, the biggest person to trick was Tony to get him through that level. Right, I do like the privilege check that he gives Tony when he kills him. He's like, I thought we were the same. He's like, and I
Oh
don't know
yeah, the
what he says,
difference
but
is you don't
yeah.
see the difference between me and you. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That was spoke to like, uh, God, the like colorblind racism thing so well. It just like, yeah, you need to see the differences. They're relevant. They're important.
Mhm.
That was such a great message, and I hope a lot of people picked up on that. But yeah,
I don't think they will. I think
I
they'll
don't think
just
they
be
will,
like,
but yeah.
oh, because he's saying he's smarter than him or something. But
Yeah,
I don't
I-
think I don't think they'll pick up on what you're saying. I'm
which
glad
is
you said it.
why I want to
Yeah.
bring it up in this
Yeah.
episode. I mean, like, that's what that means. It's to recognize the differences between us and respect them and treat each other better because we know those things. That's
think
what that was. It was great.
I also like this episode because it had a similar, again, not like cleanly tied up, but like
Mm.
a similar conversation going on as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with when he's talking to Rhodes and he's just
Mhm.
like, why would you wear your oppressor's uniform? And
Right.
then like Rhodes is like, you gotta work it from the inside. He's like, no, you gotta burn it all down, and he kills him. And it's like, that was kind of like the old Captain America to
Mm.
Sam conversation, played
Yeah.
out differently though, because like in our thing we're like, yeah, Sam has to like work it from the inside. And this one it's kind of like, I don't know, man, looks like Killmonger's got the right idea of just burning it all down.
Yeah, and this is ultimately the biggest thing, right? It's just like there are, in that conversation, like this episode is great, in the way it speaks to social justice issues. It really, really is like
I don't know if
playing
it's
out.
great. I'm just glad
Right.
that it brings some of them out. I don't think I think
Mm.
they're using it is kind of what Killmonger does in the first movie.
Yep.
Only in that sense that was more black creators controlling it. So I felt like I
Mhm.
got the through line better. I'm not quite sure they understood what they were playing with in this episode, because
That's valid.
Killmonger, even in this, so I'm not even just saying, well, in the movies, it's even in this, he's only about revenge. He's not actually trying to help anybody. He just wants to topple Wakanda and gain power.
Yeah.
So when you give him those lines, are you like, do you actually acknowledge that what he's doing is what he did in the first movie, which is get in the minds of the people he wants to topple, make it seem like he's for them, and then topple them? Or do you think, oh, that's really what he stands for, but he's still going to do these fucked up things to the black people that he said he wants to topple? So that's what I mean. I don't think it's great. I think it's nice that they're still putting that in, but I don't know. I shouldn't say that there weren't any black writers, but I don't know if they knew what they were playing with when they invoked some of that stuff.
You know what? That's fair. Yeah, they weren't afraid of touching on it, but whether or not it was well explored is a different issue. That's
Because I
for
think
helping me work through that.
when
Yeah.
people get frustrated that Killmonger is a villain, I think it's very cleanly stated in the first movie how he is actually a villain.
Yes,
He's saying
100%.
things that people want to hear, but he's doing things that people should be upset about. And
Absolutely.
it's not a disconnect. He's doing that on purpose. He is specifically doing exactly what Everett Ross said they do as Americans all the time.
Yeah, it's
But
very
in
manipulative.
this one,
for sure.
I don't know if they understand that nuance to it, because they're still giving him these moments and then he's doing the shitty things, but it's not connected the way it is in the first movie. And I'm not taking this as, oh, he's just the same Killmonger from the movie. This is a different character to me. So I don't know if they understood how to thread that needle.
Mhm. That's fair. Yeah, very, very valid. Yeah, I'll retract my point, but I like the idea that they did touch upon it, whether or not they knew what the fire that they were playing with. It was still good to see it displayed to a degree.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like, it is a part of Killmonger. It's just I think this one muddies the waters too much in terms of what's going on, because obviously they're playing him as a villain.
Yes.
So it's weird to play him as the villain without acknowledging that he is actively trying to fuck with people's minds when he says those things.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the whole uneasy part is like throughout the whole episode, like I know who Killmonger is. And in that whole episode, I'm trying to find like, are you still a Killmonger I know? Or does this point in time legit turn you into someone that is a force of good? Like that was what was fun about this whole
the Watcher
episode
says
to
no.
me.
The Watcher right away says this was a moment where a hero could have come and we stopped it, and a villain has a chance to rise.
Right. I didn't put that part together with it.
So
because
the show is
yeah.
just saying it doesn't even need, you don't even need to wait till the last episode. The show
Right.
almost immediately is like, he is the villain.
That's fair. Like the thing about the Watcher to me is it just like every time he was narrating, I'm like, you're saying a whole lot of nothing, and you're just making a lot of reasons for why you can't interfere, and that's good, that's fine, but I don't need to hear it over and over and over again. It was just
Except
like,
for in this instance where you missed
Yeah.
something really important.
you're absolutely right. So it got to the point, like, to me, I'm like, oh, the Watcher's talking, Jeffrey Wright's talking, I like his voice, but I'm not really going to pay attention too much to what he says, because still at this point I was like, oh, okay, this is not canon, this is not connected, I don't need to pay attention to this as much, which is a mistake on my part. But yeah, that this is a yeah, I should have paid attention more to the Jeffrey Wright's narration.
Yeah,
sure.
I really do like the episode. It just there's the way Shuri talks for some reason really bothered me, and that just that nuance of it's gotta be way cleaner when you're dealing with Killmonger in terms of
Yeah.
making it look like the villain is the one that wants to emancipate people, as opposed to the villain is the person who talks about doing that and then still does the oppressing once he gets into power.
Correct. It's replacing one dictator's mentality with another dictator's
Which
mentality.
is very American, which
Yes.
I liked about the first movie. is that
Absolutely.
he was trained by Americans, so he did
Yep.
American things.
Yep.
This yeah,
Still trained by
I won't
Americans
keep saying
in this
it.
one.
It's just I don't know if I think for all the people talking about all the continuity errors, I think this is something they actually should have put detail into. Was how they handled Killmonger in this episode.
You agree? I agree, because the attention to the character beats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, I want them to pay attention to Killmonger more, because Killmonger is such a vehicle of bringing up all these social issues, regardless, even though he is a villain, right? He makes it
He
so
still
that
forces,
it's like,
but
he
this is what
forces
works
a
about the first
conversation.
movie. He's
Yes.
forcing T'Challa to think about that stuff now.
Correct. And I love that about his character. And I love like the visual display of like, this is what a snake in sheepskin looks like. You know what I mean? It's crazy good. His character is so nuanced, so whatever. Like, even if he thinks he's fighting for good and all that kind of stuff, he's still like the idea of like, hey, I'm gonna fight for good, but then I'm also gonna make sure I'm fed in the process, and fed the most is like the biggest thing, right? And it's just like, yep, that's still oppression. That's still oppression. You're choosing who gets oppressed at that point. You're the dictator, and that's the difference. That's why you think it's like, it's revenge, right? It's an eye for an eye. It is that.
All right, next episode.
Yep. The
Thor is the only child.
Thor's the only child.
A lot of fun.
Such a fun episode.
I love the humor in this one. Party Thor is great, and as you alluded to, Ice Giant Loki is amazing. Like I love
awesome.
that fake out. That was so fun.
That was hilarious to me. It was
Because they did the fake out at the beginning, but since I knew this episode was unofficially titled Party Thor, I was like, well, nothing bad's gonna happen now. It's still a fun way to introduce him, but the Ice Giant thing, I genuinely was like, I wonder how this is gonna go. And then you realize, yeah, they're gonna be brothers no matter what. And it was just, it's I guess sad that like when they're not actually part of the family, that's when they work best together.
Well, I mean, that spoke to me in the sense where it was like, okay, that's a good thing, right? Because I mean, like, ultimately the way Loki and Thor were brothers was through colonization. So if it wasn't colonization, like, they would have a better relationship. I agree with that. I think that would be respected.
That's true, but Thor didn't do the colonizing. He would, like, his
Odin
relationship
was,
to him is still, that's my brother. That's not like how he got there isn't on Thor, or shouldn't really affect Thor's relation to him.
Right, but in the movies, and this is my fault for bringing it up, comparing to the What If thing, but in the movies where the biggest departure was in that relationship, we're told, like, in their adolescence, their kids like they were like little shits to each other. And that's fine because you would expect like, okay, yeah, you're brothers, you're growing up together, you're probably gonna be little dicks to each other, right? That's what kids do. But in this situation, it's like the biggest departure was the fact that he realized he was adopted. He was like an ice giant. He was never going to be taken seriously for the throne, even though he was promised the entire thing, right? So the depart, like that was his biggest insult. That was what his Loki's biggest gripe was. And if you remove that because he wasn't stolen away from his own people, I mean, he has the opportunity to be a decent person and like to be like, oh, I like the levels, though that oppression, that fucked upness never came to me. He never had to work through it. And I think that speaks to really
I
good
think the
things,
only reason I didn't compare them is because in the movie he's the runt of the litter, so he he wouldn't have had the status he has in this. So
Correct.
It's just a different situation.
You're right about that. You're right. He is the smaller thing, and that were like when he showed up.
That's why he was
huge. I was like, wait, hold up. That's
so
inconsistent.
That's the only reason why I was like, it's just two different things.
Yes,
because he's still in that universe. He's struggling no matter what. Whether or not you want to be like, oh, it's nice that he got taken. I think we both agree it's not good that he got taken away from his people.
Yes.
But something tells me being with his people wasn't gonna like grow. Like he wasn't gonna grow into what we saw in this episode. Because
I agree. Yeah,
but
he was never going to be accepted. He like the thing with Loki is like it's kind of very clear that
he's
like
born to be alone.
He's never supposed to have a true family, and he's always longing for it, right? That is his biggest downfall. Like the idea that he finds that in Sylvie, and then whatever. It's kind of tragic, but it is one of those things. He's supposed to be alone. He's supposed to be made to feel different, and all this kind of stuff. He's never really fitting in, and this this did not capture that point, and that was okay because it was like, oh, this is just a fun episode.
Yeah, no, I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't looking to compare to the movies. I was just like, oh, that's cool. They're still brothers in this form as well.
But the funny thing to me was like the way I talked myself out of it was like, oh yeah, of course he would be bigger as a frost giant if he was able to eat a frost giant's diet that was better suited to his physiology. Like I just like lied to myself about that kind of stuff. Which is funny.
It is what it is. It was just it was a nice beat. I liked all the different characters that showed up, even if they didn't talk. I really like his fight with Captain Marvel.
That was so much fun.
It almost got awkward because they kept being like, oh, this woman trying to be an authority figure, but I think
it was a Karen playing on the Karen thing, I think, more than anything else.
I don't know if they were playing on Karen. I hope they weren't. I think what they were trying to do was lean into the backlash Brie Larson got about, oh, smile more, stop being such a party pooper, like calling her a party pooper in it. I was just like, I'm hoping the joke is on Thor, but the fact that everyone else joins in, it's just another, I hope you know what you're actually dealing with. Like same criticism with the Killmonger thing as this one is like, that's a very fine line you're playing with. In terms of, because she's not a Karen. She didn't decide there's something wrong. She got called in and they're like, this is a problem. So it's not, so that's why I don't think it's playing Karen.
You're right. That's why I was like, this is inconsistent to me. I'm like, this is a really inconsistent beat. I'm like, the moment she showed up, like, you got to cut this out. You got to do this. You got to do this. I'm just like, but they're just having a good time. And I'm like,
well, they're not. They're destroying the world.
Well, you're right.
They're destroying the world.
I forgot how destructive their partying was. I completely forgot about that. Okay, never mind. She had every right to be like, yo, you got to cut this out, or you got to.
And again, she didn't make that decision. She got called in.
Maria Hill did.
She got called in with the Fury beeper, and she was like, this is for Fury because he was incapacitated due to the actions of this thing. So I understood why
kill him.
No, he was just like,
or just out. Like knocked him out.
He knocked him out, and she said, and he's still out. He didn't wake up during the episode.
Yeah, because she was acting director. Yeah,
but like, so that's why I feel like it can't be that they were like, oh, it was more just like she's doing the right thing, and people are shitting on her, and I think that is it's a good conversation to have about like how we treat women who are just good at what they do.
Yep.
But then people feel threatened by that. But I don't like the episode, because it's so fun. I don't know if that's the takeaway people will have.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I like that
was
we're
my-
talking about it, but I don't
Mhm.
think that's the takeaway that people are going to have. I think you're right, are going to be like, yeah, Brie Larson's a party pooper. But I'm like, I don't think they're talking about Brie Larson
I
specifically
think they are.
in
I
that
think
scenario.
they are being meta, but I
yeah.
think it still works for this episode.
Yeah,
If
I agree.
if they are, again,
Mhm.
the writing leaves room for me to meet them more than halfway on what their real intentions were, but I think something could have been done
Yep.
to help make that point more clear.
Yeah, you're right. They are walking a tricky line with that for
Yeah.
sure. It's like I can't tell whether or not they're trying to take it seriously or whether or not they're just like, oh, we accidentally stumbled on this one thing that is a part of a bigger conversation, right? I can't tell in this situation, because the whole episode is thematically just so much fun, right? I love Jane Foster's character in this. Like, I love everything about the part that was weird to me. I'm like, we're not seeing that Eric Selvig guy in the van, which was fine to me because I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that guy not being there.
Yeah,
But like,
and
it was just still weird that he was referenced within the episode too.
And that's why like this episode for sure proves that like these aren't the characters from the movies up until what we saw, because
Correct.
in this one she already knows Shield. She knew to call Shield. There
Mm,
wasn't any kind of like, who is Shield?
I
She
didn't
knew
even
what
pick up on
she
that,
knew
yeah.
to like contact Shield. So for me, once you see something like that, I don't ever think like, oh, these episodes are just showing us the divergent point. Like, clearly something already changed before this episode started.
Yeah.
For this episode, so that means something already changed in any of those episodes,
Yes.
other than when because I was waiting to hear the Watcher say every episode, this is the point, and he only says it in one episode, meaning that's for me the only episode where we got to see where things went different.
Because you're right. Because to me, like he only does that in the Captain Carter episode, right? Yeah. And to me, it seems like this whole like, because obviously he's watching multiverses, and let's talk about this one universe that he's talking about, the Agent Carter one, because it seems like everything in the Agent Carter universe that happens spins everything else like this off, right? Everything's built on that one universe, or
I don't think
whatever. You don't think so? So
No.
you think they're all separate universes? Because to
Yeah,
me,
they're
the
all separate
Captain.
that's, they say specifically we got picked from different universes.
See, that's what's weird, because to me, I was trying to think, like, go through back hoops to be like, okay, if Captain Carter did do this, then that would be logical that this Thor wouldn't be a part of this theory, or like this and that.
No,
Like to
we're
me,
just looking at multiverses.
this seemed, yeah, like to me, the Captain Carter universe created the rest of these universes. But maybe I'm reading too much. I actually definitely am reading too much into that, for sure.
You know, they're just different universes.
Gotcha.
So did you have anything else to do with Thor?
You know what, honestly, I just love the whole 80s party movie vibe I got
Yeah,
from
it's fun.
this.
I
Yeah,
really liked
it
this
was so
episode.
much fun. The idea of like, oh, Mjolnir's gonna give it all away. I knew it. Like the whole like, oh, the Mjolnir's back and like covered in party stuff. I'm like, yes, classic party movie bit. Such a cliche. Worked so well in this. I loved it. It was so much
and him
fun.
desperately trying to clean up before his parents get home. Yeah, I really
Yes.
I like all of that.
And then him being like, hey, we're on a school trip, and he's got like a blackboard out of nowhere. I'm like, this is hilarious. It's so like, it's everything I like about the Thor character, like really recognizing the fact that he does not want that responsibility. He thinks he does, but he's like all he really wants to do is party. Like when you see him and him not being held back by obligation, all his choices are purely hedonistic. Like when you look at like after he loses the snap and all that kind of stuff. Okay, well, he just games and all that. Well, that's PTSD, but still, like he just chooses hedonistic things, right?
I think we haven't actually got a chance to see that as a fact. I think this was just a different take on him, because
fair.
And again, in the narration that I'm assuming you blocked out from Jeffrey Wright, the Watcher, he specifically says it's not the responsibility, it's just his, and he says it in the last episode as well, Thor does, I trust everybody, but he said him not having Loki as a brother growing up never taught him to not like to have your guard up and actually
Mhm.
scrutinize what people's intentions are.
Mhm.
He had to build up this thing, and so he just became more mature because of that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is
and
definitely
so
me.
then he didn't have any of that, so
Yeah.
he just had a life of nothingness,
Mhm.
because he was never forced, he was never challenged in any way, or even forced to think to like survive or anything like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. The
Because
Jeffrey
when
Wright
because
narration
if
is
you're talking
definitely a
about
lot more
Endgame, that
important.
is serious PTSD. I really like what they did with that, but that had
100%.
nothing to do with like, oh, now I can relax.
Yeah, but I guess the best indication of what I'm talking about is like if you look at Thor in Thor 1, where he's like getting back from the battle and he's celebrating, boasting, and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's Thor. That's genuinely who he is. And he just like, yeah, in front of his dad, he's like, yeah, okay, I'll play the role now. But he's like, he wants to be that celebrated. He wants
Yeah,
to
he
be
wants to
that
be
king. He wants to be praised and all that kind of stuff. He is very hedonistic, and it's kind of fun to watch, for sure in this episode. And then the best part about this episode, the absolute best part, is the oh fuck moment. Ultron or Ultron perfected or whatever it is. Like the moment he shows up in that last thing, I'm like, oh damn, we're going towards something here now. This is
Mhm.
cool. This is really cool. Like this is the
Just
first
Watcher
episode that got
thrown
me to be
off.
like,
He's
boom.
like, what's that?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go to the next episode.
What if
Hey,
Ultron won? This
yes,
is the next
we
section.
got a whole Vision Ultron. So this is where he
Yeah.
actually gets to use the body that would have become Vision.
Yes.
And he's basically killed everyone somehow, but
Mhm.
Clint and Natasha somehow. I mean, you see
Stay
them
alive, yeah.
surviving; they're doing well. But I'm just like, it seems
Mm.
like some
They're
more people would have been alive.
Doing well is debatable, but
I mean, they're able to take him out. Like, obviously, they're doing well. They're the last ones alive, so I don't think there's any debate. But like, they're not doing well at killing him, but they're still alive.
right. I'm just saying. I mean, Clint's obviously not doing well in this episode. He's going through some shit.
I
He's
mean,
always going through some shit. And like
He
I said
still
to you,
gets to make the
yeah,
choice of whether or not he wants to live.
true. You're right.
So
You know,
yeah.
and I want to point this out too. Like I over text, I was like, this is the episode that really made me appreciate Clint. And to your point over text, you were saying like, well, he's always been the same character. I'm like, yeah, but I really saw his character shine in this one. And like, I got to stop making Hawkeye jokes because like every time, like this episode, the moment this episode came out, I was like, yep, he is the heart and soul of the Avengers. Because every time he's not on the Avengers, they lose. They lose all the time. And then when he's back on the Avengers, they win every single time. So it's like this crazy thing of like, yeah, he's you could joke about him like the heart ring and the Captain Planet and the Planeteers, but he's like the most essential part of this thing. Not the most essential, but like stats wise, if you don't have a Hawkeye on
He's
your
got
team,
more wins than
losing.
losses.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think this, again, for me, the best part was the Watcher versus Ultron fight.
Oh god, yeah.
I really liked that.
It was fun to watch this giant headed thing just like try to beat up. It was like visually fun to watch. I'm like, your giant heads.
I think they did a good job with fights
Yes.
throughout most of the episodes.
Mhm.
I would say on the whole, this season did a good job with fights. But yeah, this one I really liked, and I liked how human the Watcher was in this. Like when he kept talking, even though Ultron's like, "What is that?" Like, and I'm like, "Shut up, shut up!" But like he's still like, "I gotta keep narrating," and it's like, "Wow, you're fucking everybody right now." And then, or just like how he's like, "Come on, just pick the form of like the Armanzola's right there. Come on, like, don't give up, don't give up." And like I genuinely like, yeah, just intervene already. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's a good stand-in for us. You know, it's like I felt like the Watcher is such a good representation of how I am in horror films. It's like, why would you run up the stairs? Go out the front door. Why would you run up the stairs? Like, you know, like that kind of thing. And just like, no, just pick that one. Just pick that. It is such a good stand-in for that kind of mentality for watching a horror film. It was a lot of fun. I really liked how human he was there. You're great words on your part.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Zola couldn't get the job done in this one.
Yeah,
but that's all right. He'll be back.
I will
And-
say one thing. This, you know how you're hung up on the Shuri voice acting? The Ultron voice acting here really pissed me off because I'm like, I love James Spader's voice, and it was such a perfect Ultron thing. It was so good. It worked so beautifully. Like whenever I think Ultron, all I can think of the like him sing like the "But there are no strings on me" kind of thing, and how creepy that was. This did not give me that, and that was disappointing.
I
That was
agree.
really
I agree with you that
disappointing.
it's definitely not what James Spader was going for. I just saw it as a necessary thing because what they were doing is showing you how he's at peak now. Like Ultron wasn't peak. Ultron still had the moments of like, oh, I'm gonna cut Claw's hand off because he mentioned Tony Stark. Like we're past that, and I understand realistically was probably just they couldn't get James Spader back, so they brought in Ross Marquand.
Yes.
But it was more like even acknowledging that, it still made sense to me that it's like, okay, there's a marriage between Ultron and this body, and that makes something different. But you're right. I'm sure he was still trying to do a James Spader, but a James Spader that has upgraded.
See, that was the thing that I was like, is he trying to do James Spader, or is he trying to just depart and be like, hey, I have the excuse to be like, this is the Vision body. Do I try to do a voice that's Jarvis and Ultron fused together?
I would say it wouldn't make sense if he's trying to do
exactly
if he thinks that, oh, just because it's in the, because it's still just the one voice. I only think it makes sense if he think the only thing it makes sense if he's thinking this is an upgrade. He's not as muddied and he's not as comical now because basically he is just got the one track mind. This is him at peak Ultron.
Ultron perfected is I think what they called him. But like, you're right. Like they have the ability to be like, oh, well, he's in a different body. That means different vocal projections based on the upgrades that he did with vibranium and all that. Like they could say all that shit that they wanted to, and that would have been fine. But to me, the biggest disappointment was like, I want the monotonous, mechanical James Spader voice. I want it. It was so sad that I didn't get it. Because with them having like the voice acting talent that they did, holy shit, to not bring back James Spader, I was like, oh, that's a huge blow against this. But watching him do this, watching him interact with the Watcher, watching him break that fourth wall, which means it's a fifth wall break, I guess, maybe for us, but a lot of fun in this. So much fun. Yeah.
And then 9 is
what if
Guardians of
the Watcher broke his oath?
Yes. Great. I love it. What a great time.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
I'm a sucker for a team montage putting together and all that kind of stuff.
I like the team aspect. I really liked Agent Carter or Captain Carter in this. The only thing that was weird, and I don't know if she was being sly, but Doctor Strange is like, oh, in my universe, Steve takes the serum. And I was just like, she says like, oh, that would be something. And I'm like, but that you were there for him to take the serum. Like you already knew that was you. Like, I guess she just thinks like in every universe I take it. Maybe that was her assumption.
Maybe, but
I guess she said, I guess I know, and you know another Captain Carter, and he's like, no. But I'm like, I guess, I mean, to me, it just seemed like a weird beat because it was just like, it's one thing if she's like, oh, okay, so he got to take it in this one. It's another for her to be like, oh, that would be something to see. It's like as if it never occurred to her that he could take it.
Yeah, no, I just think in this episode, it was very, very clear that they put her in the same Baltrock battle that like was in Civil War with Natasha and all that kind of stuff with Winter Soldier. Sorry, no, Civil War, Winter Soldier, and they put her in the exact same thing. So it was just, to me, building off that Winter Soldier theme of like, hey, let's get you a date. And then Steve being like, yeah, there's no one really that floats my boat except for this person. I just think it was like building up to that point where they're like, yeah, they only have, they've tried to date outside, or like Steve has. Her, I'm not convinced they've shown that, but I think it's just building off that same beat of like, oh, they only have eyes for each other or something like that, or they're only attracted to each other, or that was a genuine love that they had. That's all I saw.
You should know she's married in her TV show.
Of course. I never watched the Carter show, but sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Damn it. I look like an idiot.
So I mean, she's not at the beginning of it, but she does marry someone.
Gotcha.
She has a love interest.
That makes sense. I mean, like Sharon Carter's like
let's talk about this episode though.
Damn it, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot.
Let's talk about this episode. So yeah,
why do you think sorry, go on.
I just thought everyone did a great job. I obviously continued to like to see Party Thor. Star-Lord T'Challa, I love that he saves Peter at the beginning, and then like you see him recreate the memory that Peter had of Yondu teaching him to do the blaster thing. That was really nice. I also like when he's talking to Killmonger and he's like, cousin, put it back, and he's like, I'm not your cousin. I was just like that. I at first didn't understand that beat, and then rewatching, I'm like, I think he means like, I already killed my cousin in my universe. You're just nothing to me.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. He's like, oh yeah, well, you would be my cousin in that
like, universe.
You're a cousin in my different
I killed
universe.
my cousin, and also I care less about you than I did that cousin.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's interesting. When he called him cousin, that caught me off beat. I was like, wait, but you didn't spend as much time on Earth. Would you have known that this is your cousin? Like that this is like that your dad did that shitty thing when he was the Black Panther? Like you know, like
it didn't have to play out that way. It just has to play out that he knows that he's the son of his dad's brother.
Right. Which is why I say like it felt just like a weird thing, but moving on, it wasn't something that was hugely impactful. It was like, that really doesn't make sense. And now I'm going to spend 15 minutes talking about it.
It makes sense. He's trying to appeal to him by being like, your family, cousin, don't do that. And then his pushback is like, you're not, because we're not from the same universe. And in my universe, I killed my cousin, so that family shit won't work on me.
And then also too, it's like, we're also not cut from the same cloth. Like I have a very, very specific agenda on my mind right now.
I didn't fully understand how he was doing what he was doing, but it didn't really matter. I was just like, I guess he was picked, Killmonger was picked by the Watchers so that he would still do this thing, and then Doctor Strange would trap all of the threats at once instead of having some threats still out there. My only thing with this episode was like, why wasn't it zombie Thanos and zombie Wanda that took on Ultron? Even if it ended the same way of him just blowing them up, it just seemed like, why not bring zombie Thanos into this fight?
Well, why not bring zombie Thanos back in general is what I agree. But when that thing came out and all the zombies came out, I was like, oh shit, that's fucking wild.
He's like, oh, it's what's coming with the zombies. And that zombie Thanos with a bunch of Infinity Stones for himself.
And then it was Wanda Maximoff zombie, which is still damn good, but like, don't get me wrong, you're right. I thought that lead up was, this is obviously zombie Thanos, right? With the stones. This is obviously zombie Thanos, but nope,
it's
nothing.
I guess they didn't want 2 times where the stones go off of each other, because Doctor Strange still has the time stone, so maybe they wanted to keep that. But
that was weird too. That was like when they were like, oh, the stones only work in his multiverse or whatever. You
can only destroy stones from your universe with that thing.
Right.
They didn't say they don't work in different universes.
That MacGuffin was really weird. It's like, oh, of course, that's from my universe. It would only store it. Like, I'm like, of course.
I like that, because it means it's not as easy as they think. I like that.
Oh no, I agree, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, there had to be a thing where it's like, of course this wouldn't work. Now I have to up the scales, and it was just like, that was just a funny little annoyance of me. I'm like, of course we're gonna do this, but you're right. I liked it still, but it was just, to me, I'm like, I knew it was gonna happen. But it was fun either way.
So that's. What else happens in there? I really like when they go back to their different times. I already said the T'Challa Star-Lord one. I really like that. And I like that Peggy and Natasha get like surprises when they go back to their times.
I like that the Watcher continues to interfere. by the end of this episode, because it's just like if he really genuinely like, okay, this is the only time I interfered, this is the only time I did anything, because you know the multiverse would be broken if you know I didn't do anything. But I like how he interviews at the end is like, okay, this universe lost its Natasha, and you're the only one left on your universe, so we might as well be like, okay, I'm going to interfere, put you here. That was really, really cool to me. I like that, because when Natasha at that very end was like, I'm not going back. Like, I get what you're saying, but like there's nothing for me to go back to. I won't do it. So you either kill me or you do whatever. Like, there's nothing to go. Like, that broke me so much. I was like, holy shit. That was rough, because I'm like, this is a Natasha that saved the multiverse. And we're so used to like the hero at the end of the story, at the end of the journey, getting like the prize or the piece or whatever. But in this situation, you're like, yeah, this is jarring, because if this went according to plan, you literally don't get anything. You're way worse off.
I mean,
if you went
you're
back. It's crazy.
thinking that wasn't always part of his plan.
Right. I am thinking that wasn't always.
It was always part of his plan, though.
You think it was always part of the plan? Okay.
Nothing in this tells me that wasn't always part of his plan. He said the thing is just a metaphor. Like, at no point do I think that was like a last minute decision. He picked people specifically, and I know he left her out because he probably thought, like, I'm not going to sell her on the front end. She'll trust me by the end of this, and then she'll go into I think that was always the plan.
That's another part that I wanted to ask you, because I was like, that was one of the things in my mind. I'm like, it seems like a misstep that they wouldn't bring Black Widow into this, but hearing you say like, oh yeah, I'm going to gain her trust on the back and like that way, that makes a lot more sense to me, because yeah, of course, that Natasha is so jarred and like alone that wouldn't trust anyone or anything, so wouldn't hear that pitch out at all. It would just be like, no, like, I'm doing this, I gotta do this, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, okay, cool. Like, because I was like, was the Watcher good at putting together a team? Like, why would you not pick Natasha from that universe, knowing that she's got that Zola virus?
It's all part of his plan.
You thought it was all
Doctor
part
Strange
of the plan.
says
Fair
it
enough.
as well. Like, this was always your plan. I think it's nothing about the episode makes me feel like any of that was like, oh, let's call an audible here.
Cool. I want to say your comment about the action in this series was fully realized in this episode. The action here, so much fun. Like, watching Doctor Strange do all the things to like buff his party and like give them all stat upgrades and armor and all that kind of stuff. That was so cool to me. The part that was really, really weird was like, oh, it took Ultron that long to figure out it was Doctor Strange he needed to take out. Like, that was weird. I'm like, you're supposed to be smarter than that. But I mean, granted, he was being messed up by a billion different Mjolnirs. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that was the point. Just said, give him all you got. Don't give him a chance to think.
Yeah, it was awesome. That was so cool. So cool. I like that. So here's one thing I thought that I had. One criticism I had about Shang-Chi was, now post Endgame, it seems like the MCU or the audience or whatever, we're starved for that Endgame level final fight showdown, to the point where it's like it comes as a detriment if we don't get it. I don't know if that's true yet, because Shang-Chi is still the first movie that's announced, and the Eternals, we're obviously going to get that, because the runtime it's the second longest runtime for a Marvel movie behind Endgame. So we're going to get some sort of epic showdown, some sort of like, that is what Eternals is showing us. That's what it's promising us that we're going to get. This series gave us an Endgame style showdown, and it earned it, and it was good. It was like, it just did all that, and it was really, really good. My issue is, I don't know if that reinforces the expectation that we need that Endgame style showdown where we have all these events coming together now, or if it's just like, okay, we're doing this because there's no Avengers on the docket right now, and we kind of need team up things before that. I don't know, but the level of expectation for what that final finale is, I don't know if that's going to impact
your
other
expectation
stuff.
Or you've heard other? I don't know why anyone we're going to get an Endgame level thing right
I
after
hear
Endgame.
I hear a lot of other people talking about this, like the content creators being like, ever since Endgame, I've always wanted a final showdown that reaches that level. And it's disappointing to know that this isn't. Like, I hear a lot of content creators being like, with the Shang-Chi movies specifically, they're like, I'm so glad the final fight was the way it was, because if it was just a fight between Wenwu and like Shang-Chi and like the daughter, it would have been disappointing, because it wouldn't have like given me that Endgame level of expectation. There are people out there that are expecting Endgame level showdowns at the end of every single movie. And I'm like, that cannot be real right now. That is just setting the bar too high for every single movie. And it's nonsensical, right? This one earned it, and it was great, and I loved it. I kind of wish that Marvel can identify more things like this, where it's like, yeah, we can earn it within this series, and it's not impacting the whole MCU as a whole. Because to me, like, what suffers is the fact that we're trying to bring those, if Marvel is doing that, to build that audience, to feed that audience expectation for, we need Endgame style showdowns, that's going to come to a detriment to a lot of movies and a lot of shows, I think. But this
sounds like
it
the
worked
content
really well.
creators you're talking or listening to are not good at movies.
I mean, it's very, very debatable whether or not they are. I mean, like, personally
we're gonna have to
speaking,
wrap this up though,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Fair.
So let's do our ranking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I hate to
We
say
got
it, but I will
real
have to
life
get
stuff.
back to stuff.
Yeah.
So
we got real life stuff. That's fair.
it's
All
an
right.
interesting point you bring up. I would think that anyone who actually likes film would understand you can't have an Endgame level thing right after Endgame, but you're saying you're seeing it, so
Yep.
I
This was
say those
earned.
people are bad
Yeah.
at movies.
I agree. Because there's a lot of the points that they don't talk about, especially when the biggest eye-opening thing was when they interpreted Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they arrived at those conclusions. I'm like, oh, I think you're not. I don't think you're analyzing this well enough, or taking enough.
Speaking of
variables into
analyzing,
But
let's
rank
rank these things. Let's
Are we going from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom?
yeah.
Okay.
We'll go up to. So, what's your 9th place episode?
Doctor Strange losing his heart instead of his hands.
Yep, mine
Did
too.
not care for this episode.
Mine too. What's your number 8?
8 is what if Captain Carter was the first Avenger?
Mine too.
Because this was the least imaginative out of all of them.
Yeah.
That's why.
Your number 7.
Thor as an only child.
Mine was Vision, Ultron, whatever the one is where it's just Clinton and Natasha.
Oh, what if Ultron won?
That's the one.
Really?
Yeah, that's
okay.
that's my 7.
They
All right,
ranked
what's your
that
number
low for
6?
you, eh? 6 for me is what if the world lost its mightiest heroes?
Mine is Thor as the only child.
Wow. Okay. 5.
What's your number 5?
Killmonger saving Tony Stark.
Mine is Zombies.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
Zombies.
Mine is Hank Pym kills all the Avengers.
Gotcha.
Your number 3?
Watcher breaking the oath.
Mine is Killmonger saves Tony.
Gotcha.
Number 2.
Ultron winning.
Mine is the last episode where Watcher breaks his oath.
I feel like we got the same number 1.
Yeah.
T'Challa Star-Lord.
Yeah. What an excellent episode. It's the best.
I knew it. This is why I love doing this podcast with you, buddy. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, the best episode without a doubt. Anyone who disagrees with us is an idiot. Is
We'll fight you.
T'Challa Star-Lord. It does everything that you should like about T'Challa, right? And
Yes.
puts him in a new setting, and it's a new story. It's
And
excellent.
it's Chadwick, and it's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network. We are on the same network as great shows as Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, whole bunch of things. So please head on over to thatshelf.com, get those shows, our show as well. If you want older episodes of our show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is it's at TDF Spoiled. And we're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, a whole bunch of places. If you don't see us where you get your podcasts, please get in touch with us through Twitter or email. Otherwise, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with everybody you know, even if you don't necessarily like them. Thank you.
No, share it with them, especially if you don't like them.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.